and welcome to another episode of the Shite and Sarcasm Show. In today's episode of Hambini Destroys, but before we carry on, I know those of you who are regular viewers will be admiring the hair. I've just had a session with the hairdresser. She gave me a blow dry of my hair. These Farsports Ventoux C6s, we're gonna do a teardown. Fucking hell. A teardown and change the bearings on them. So, let's begin. Let's start off with my tools. The tools that you will need are a hammer. This one is 2.5 kilos, 5 pounds. A punch, a press, so this or piece of stud bar, a nut, or 2 nuts, some washers, and I've got one of my handles on the end, and some overaxle adapters. Now these ones are 6803, which is a smaller one, and 6903, which is the bigger one. These are metal. You can use plastic. The reason I use metal is mainly because I like to observe corrosion. I get off on it. Now, the miserable amongst you whinge that I always have dirty equipment. Well, I've cleaned it today. This is the rear wheel. First thing we need to do is take the quick release off. So let's fish that out and put it to one side. We are going to need this bit in a second. I have threaded the quick release back through, but I've angled it to one side like that. So it's like up against the top cap, and then you just tap on the wheel and this should fly off. Like that. Now lift it off and you'll have this. And the free hub comes off like that. Now this is the 4-pole free hub. You can see it's a bit grubby in there, and that's a 6803 bearing. So is that one. One very important thing that you mustn't forget is there's a tiny spacer on there. Keep that to one side. Now we're going to get these bearings out. It's always easier to push out a smaller bearing. The bearing on the far side is a 6803. The bearing on the near side is a 6903. In there's an internal sleeve. What I'm going to do is push that out the way. So if I zoom in, you can just about see the sleeves now moved out of the way. Move it around. And that gives me just enough poke to fish that other bearing out. We're going to tap it now. So now we need some very, very carefully calibrated hammer blows. And then that is free. Almost. Just need a couple more to tap that out. That's out. So there's a small cavity which you can dump the bearing into. As you do that, the sleeve and the bearing comes out like that. So we've got a bearing that's got a full seal on one side and a non-contact seal on the other. So that's the 6803, and that's the internal sleeve that's been ground. That's quite good. Right, with the non-drive side facing upwards, the drive side is facing down. What you need to do is put the thing through again and then just tap again. Oh, that one came out for me. And then that bearing comes out, so that's LB, so that's non-contact on both sides. And then you're left with the bare wheel. See the ratchets in there, or the mating part of the ratchet's in there, and this is the other side. Okay. This is the free hub, and same kind of principle to get it out. What we need to do is, there's a sleeve in there, we'll move that out of the way. Okay, just so that we can get the punch in and tap. That's shifted most of it. and the other bits come out. So now we need to just repeat the process to get that bit out, and then we can go from there. Now you may want to take these pawls out, but I'm feeling brave, so I'm not going to. This is the sleeve that was in the rear hub. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put that through like that, and here's a socket which is slightly bigger than the bearing, so the bearing fits in it perfectly. So that's a 6803, and this just happens to be a 27mm socket. I'm going to put that over there and then get a quick clamp, and hopefully this will work. And the bearing pops out. So we just give it a bit of a push. Just need to push it a bit more. There we go. Just wasn't quite long enough. So bearings, sleeve, everything. So that's how you do that. So now we've got it all stripped into little pieces. So there's our free hub bearings, there's the sleeve. There's our hub bearings and the sleeve for that. So now we can reassemble this right now. In an ideal world, you should not reuse these bearings, but for the purposes of this video, I'm going to. The bearings are 6803s times 3 and the 6903. We'll start off by reassembling the free hub. So what you need to do is, in this case, you need to put the black seals in towards the centre. Get that started. Put the centre sleeve in. And then do that. Then it's time for the over axle presses. We're going to clamp there and there. So I'll rig that up and then come back and show you. So I've got the free hub located, got the other bearing in. This bearing's loose, the centre sleeve's in. I'm going to put an over axle press in, washer, and then the nut. Then it's just a question of tightening it up while keeping it lined up. So here we go. What you want is, you want this sleeve to have a bit of friction and clamped up on the inner races. Right, to do this side, the 6903 bearing, which is the larger size, goes into there, and the sleeve and the smaller bearing with the black side facing up goes underneath. Pop that through, and then we clamp the whole assembly up. Here we go. Just make sure everything is lined up. That's the main thing. Right, that's done. Now, when you're done, you should have something that looks like this. So that's the 6903. And that one is the 6803. Notice the red seal is on the outside. Let's put the spacer in and a small amount of grease in there. Don't go overboard. And then we're going to assemble the free hub into there. This is the main axle. Load that onto the free hub. It'll go. There we go. And then we push that through. Then we'll have to just lift the wheel off. And then we'll put the cap on the other side. This is the cap. We just literally pop that down. And that
is it on the back wheel. I forgot to say, you need to put the quick release lever back through. So this is the front wheel. We begin again by taking the quick release lever off. We're going to need this again. So what we need to do is we need to thread it through and then off at an angle. And then we just tap on the wheel. And the cap comes off. Turn the wheel over and then pull the axle out. Now in there's another sleeve which we need to move out the way and then give some hammer blows with a punch. The bearing comes out, turn it over and do the other side. So this is what we've got inside the front hub. We've got a 6803, another 6803 and a centre sleeve. The hub looks like that. It's the same, it's symmetrical, so it doesn't really matter which way you put it in. To reassemble it is very similar to the rear wheel. We'll do that now. So the bearing's in and it's just loosely fitted, so a friction fit. And then we're going to put the sleeve and the other bearing in from the other side. Again, orange seal. In this case, most of the time they'll be just one colour through and then clamp it up. Locked together now, all we've got to do is tighten this all up. That's done. Can't emphasise how important it is to make sure the sleeve in there is a snug fit between the inner races of the bearings, because that's part of the preload system. If you get that wrong, you'll find the wheel is unstable, so you want to make sure you get that right. This is now ready for the axle to go back in, so I'm going to just pop that underneath the wheel and tap it. So it comes out like that, and then the top cap to go back in, and that's done. Now put your QR back through and that's complete. Just thread the QR back through without trying to do that. Well done.
Well, it wouldn't quite be a Hambini video without PowerPoint, so I've done one for here. Right, this is called Hambini Destroys the Farsports Ventoux, and it's really about the hubs. By Hambini, aged 5, you can find me on Grindr, Ricky Ramrod, or Timmy's Tea Room. Firstly, a word about my sponsor. I've got a sponsor for this video because in the last video I said this. Hello Hambini fans and welcome to another episode of the Shite and Sarcasm Engineering Show, sponsored by nobody. And as a result, a chap called Frankie from Bosque Cycling Repairs in Albuquerque, New Mexico wanted to sponsor this video. Now, rather than me take payment for this, I told him to make a charitable donation to a charity of his choice, a Red Cross or whatever, and he chose helping homeless people in the New Mexico area, which I thought was a good thing, and, you know, there we go. Now, he did want a few things to be mentioned on here, so here's his website, so you can go and have a look around there. He's also got a YouTube channel, which is called Mobile Bicycle Repair 505. I'll link to it in the box below. If you don't like his videos, go and fuck your hairdresser. They were his words, not mine. They may be copied, but nonetheless, that's where we are. Right, let me carry on with the rest of this, which is here. So yeah, big shout out to Frankie. These hubs overall are extremely well designed and extremely well engineered. They have had a lot of thought that's gone into making that the way it is. The preload system, someone has literally gone from the textbook, and it is a, you know, a very, very good example. The only area where you could probably say there's a cost compromise is in the area of bearings. Now the bearings aren't like top of the tree. They're not bad, but they're not top of the tree. This is the list of bearings that you'd need if you want to replace them. This is actually the same as the wind space. So they're the same sizes and the same quantities. This is for the rim brake. And again, I've got, if you want them to last and if you want to go fast. Now I usually go for these, but lots of other people who don't ride their bikes in such inclement weather go for, want to go fast. Right, just on that subject, fakes. Now I had a load of people since the last video comment about fakes. Now look at the genuine and the fake. It's almost impossible to tell the difference. I'll link to the page below with the original pictures on, but the genuine bearing, which is this, this one, it's almost impossible to tell the difference. And what might not be so obvious is, in this case, it's an SKF bearing. The genuine one is on the left in the rather shabby packaging, and again the two SKF boxes. I can't remember which one the fake one is on there. I mean, they're that good. Right, the tools you'll need a 6803 over axle press. I'll put warning there, and a 6903 over axle press, C9. That small letter indicates that it is a shaft fit, so it is not interference on the outside. It's slightly smaller than in the case of 6903. That's the 30mm outside diameter. You might be tempted to use a flat plate to push in. If you do that, you may end up with the preload system not preloading correctly, and the wheel may wobble ever so slightly. Now, a 1/4 millimeter at the wheel hub will amplify to 3 or 4 millimeters at the periphery, at the tyre, so you don't really want to do that. A press, some stud bar and some nuts. I mean, I usually use M12, you've just seen me use M12. And then basic grease chart. So what we've got here is NLGI class. So this is, I mean, there's a few other different standards that that are available, but NLGI is a common one. There's DIN, ASTM, and a few others. Now, if you're just going to go for, if you want to really go fast, you want to go in here. So a 000, but that is quite expensive. A 0, which that's not a 0, but I've got some 00. That is, fairly reasonably priced, but you will have to replenish it quite frequently. A 0 is a good all-rounder because you can use that for assembly and for lubrication. So beyond 2 is really no good for lubrication because it's just too sticky, too viscous. So that's how that works. So the further you go down, the more firm the grease becomes. I mean, the bottom one's almost like butter. If you use the wrong grease on some bearings, you may get something called tack. Now, a chap sent me a picture of these. These are Look BB65 bearings, and you can see here, here, and here. Now, when I looked at them, I thought it was mechanical damage, and then I asked a bearing expert to have a look. And what he said was, that's been attacked, and one of the things is certain greases can attack your bearings. Now, on the the industrial bearings, so the fags and the NTNs of this world, no grease really touches them. But this one, this Look cycle, I mean, the Look original BB65 bearings were made by a company called SNR, which is part of NTN. So SNR was the bearing department of the car company Renault. Those ones, no one really ever had any problems with, but later down the line, they shifted from them to some third party, and these bearings are prone to spinning and also this bearing attack. So just be careful what kind of grease you're going to put in there. If you've got any questions and comments, please comment below. I do read all your comments. I can't reply to them all, but I do try my best. As always, smash that like button and hit subscribe. And also another thanks to Frankie from Bosque Cycling Repairs for sponsoring this video. Thanks, and keep banging your hairdressers.